Hello, baseball fans. Jaime Becerril here, along with Corey Seidman, Ruben Amario Jr., and Ricky Potalico. And another year of spring training Q&A presented by Toyota, proud sponsors of Philadelphia Phillies. I know last season was one of the most anticipated seasons. Now, I believe this year the difference is that this is the moment for those players to shine, to have a great season. And the team knows that. The team, what they're doing is they're polishing the same players that they like. Now, the fans, that's a different story. They show their support. They show that loyalty to the Red Battalion. And it is a party here, and it is contagious.
Yeah, it definitely is a party. Every time you come down here, it never disappoints. I mean, I saw, 6, 7 standing room only deep out here all game long. I mean, that's insane for spring training. And, the crowd's always behind this team, and I think this team's going to give them a lot to cheer about this year.
Yeah, every time I step out off that plane and cruise on down the causeway to here to Clearwater, almost, 70 years now of baseball here in Clearwater with the Phillies. It is special. There's a real feeling of joy and happiness, and brings back a lot of great memories as a player and playing with Ricky and so many others. But the support that they've gained and the sort of the connection that this team has had with the fans, I mean, it translates, and you see it here with the support you see here every day.
Yeah, there were nearly 11,000 people here today, the 8th largest crowd in this ballpark's history. We've seen several sellouts here early in camp. It just speaks to the fan interest that we've seen at Citizens Bank Park in the last few seasons. And, everybody's ready here to watch the Phillies try to finish the job that they've gotten so close 2 years in a row.
Yeah, 10,934 people here today, almost a sold out. And it's been constant. Every day it's been the same. And, these fans, they want to see that, what you're mentioning. They want to see that we were seven games combined, 5 the last season, 2 the season before that. And that's one of the biggest questions. Is this team ready? Is this team actually good enough to have that, to bring that to the city? We want that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the landscape in the National League, this still looks like one of the best teams. Other than the Dodgers and the Braves, there's really nobody on paper that's in the Phillies class. They brought back all of their key guys. You have all of these superstars right in the middle of their prime. This just feels like the time. And then Dave Dombrowski in the front office went out this offseason and added a lot of necessary depth. So the Phillies that you're seeing on the field in Grapefruit League play, this is a deeper roster than they've had really throughout this entire era.
And I always actually thought that this team – last year, when they were down to the Final Four, I really believe that as far as the length and breadth of the team, it was the best ball club in all of baseball. Now, they couldn't get past the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I know Texas got hot, but I do believe in my heart of hearts that as far as, pitching, defense, offense, the whole package, I did believe that the Phillies had the best ball club in the Final Four.
I just think it was a disappointment last year. I mean, when it really came down to it, you went to Arizona thinking, all right, this series is over before they even come back to Citizens Bank Park. But then you almost had that wild card in your pocket. All right, they didn't play very well when they went out to Arizona. You still have 2 games coming at home at Citizens Bank Park. And it's very simple. It just didn't happen. I mean, things kind of went south on them out in Arizona a little bit. They couldn't really they couldn't regroup. And when you don't regroup in a situation like that, your season ends. I mean, I agree with Ruben. I think they were the best team left. There's no doubt in my mind.
And there's things that you have to obviously fix. Like one of the things that I've seen that they're actually emphasizing is defense. Trey Turner, he has to catch better. He knows that. He said that last year, and the team knows that, and they're working on it. That's what we're seeing in Clearwater. They're emphasizing in the defense.
Yeah, Trey Turner's talked about that several times. That he said 2 weeks ago, I know I'm not the best defensive shortstop in baseball, but I also know I'm not the worst defensive shortstop in baseball. And last year, his errors were toward the top of the league. But one of the other points of emphasis in camp has been lack of chasing. The Phillies, that was their fatal flaw last year in the playoffs against the Diamondbacks, against that Arizona bullpen. They were just expanding the strike zones. A lot of the key right-handed hitters in particular expanding the strike zone. That's been a focus all throughout camp, getting guys to just hone in on their zones, laying off that borderline pitch. This is the time of year to do it. Lay off that borderline pitch, see if it's able to be called a ball to give yourself more confidence to take that in the regular season. So that the points of emphasis the Phillies have had early in camp are a couple of the things that they need to improve upon and reasons that last year ended the way it did.
And one of the things that the fans should be really excited about, in my mind, is that you usually come into camp with like these glaring holes in on your club. This team really doesn't have glaring holes, and I think it's a great credit to Dave Dombrowski and John Middleton of sort of shoring up those holes. There's always going to be problems, and at some point there's going to be injuries you're going to have to deal with, and what have you, and guys just not performing. But they're coming into this camp. Really, if they stay healthy through the camp, they've got a chance to do some real damage. And there's not, you're not looking at like a giant hole in this lineup or in the rotation or bullpen that just you point to and you say, hey, they got to do this, or this. If that thing comes up, I think that they will certainly address it at some point during the season. But right now, they're in pretty good shape.
When was the last time, and it is just being honest, you were a general manager. When was the last time that you saw a team go into spring training, there's really not a spot open? I mean, the only thing they're really looking for is any kind of depth. There are no spots to be found on this team right now.
Final spot on the bench,
But
last couple bullpen
one spot
spots.
on the bench, but there's a guy there who has it right now.
Right.
I mean, so yes, it may be there for the taking, but I mean, I can't remember a team that has gone into spring training like this.
And it's been a while. I mean, probably in the
Yankees,
2009,
maybe?
10, and 11 when we were in that era where we didn't have a whole lot of holes.
Definitely a lot of holes.
But that didn't we haven't been in this situation in a long time. You're right, Ricky.
I just hope it benefits the team. Sometimes you bring in new blood that helps the team. This one they went completely opposite and figured, all right, let's re-sign Aaron Nola. That'll be our big signing. You added Merrifield later on for maybe just a little bit of a push. But I look at this and, man, if these guys really like each other like they say they do, this could be a fun year.
And it seemed that they know each other a lot. You come here to Clearwater, and they seem like a family. They know each other. This is the moment, like I said, this is the moment for them to actually have, and shine. And the best thing that we have here in Clearwater too is defense, and that's why we have Ashley, and she has the first question. So let's go with Ashley. She has the first question with the fans.
Yeah, guys, our first fan question comes from Steve, and he wants to ask Corey, what do you think the opening day lineup will be?
Oh, no. Well,
right out of the chute. Go get him.
We know that Rob Thompson likes to alternate the lefties and righties as much as possible. I would fully expect Kyle Schwarber to be in the leadoff spot, barring something crazy that happens the rest of camp. So you're probably looking at Schwarber, Turner, Harper. The 4 spots a question. Alec Boehm was in that cleanup spot last year in the playoffs, and there were questions, was he protecting Bryce Harper enough? So it could be Real Muto, could be Castellanos in that 4 spot, Stott 5. I guess Castellanos or Real Muto 6, Marsh 7. And, filling out the lineup from there. But I think it's going to be pretty much similar to what we saw last year. The big question is, will Johan Rojas be the everyday center fielder? He'd be batting 9th. If not, you might see Whit Merrifield in the opening day lineup, for example.
And Rojas is actually a good question because I spoke with him today, actually, and he said that he seems bigger. He is actually, his talent, as we know, is to anticipate the balls. I mean, it seems that naturally he knows where to go before the ball hits there. So he said, and I quote him, he said, they better, the opposite team better hit that ball out of the park, because if it comes my way, they're going to be out. That's what he said.
He's got a lot of confidence in his ability to play that position. And I've seen a lot of very good outfielders. Andrew Jones comes to mind as one of the best I've ever seen. And Johan's got that kind of an instinct. He really is very good. Great nose to the ball. Jackie Bradley, who I worked with in Boston, also outstanding. And I see a lot of those similarities that Johan has that it factor in the outfield. Hopefully he can hit enough to be a guy that they can count on for this season.
Yeah, I played with a guy, Mike Cameron. You remember Mike
Oh,
Cameron?
of
What
course.
great jumps he got
Phenomenal.
he got off of the bat. And I think that's exactly what Rojas does. I mean, when you're in center field, it's all about instincts. It's all about making that first move and taking that first step. And I think he reminds me of like old school great center fielders that are going to go and get anything from gap to gap. And he has no fear about going gap to gap, although I don't think he really had that issue last year because you have Castellanos in right, who's not covering a lot of ground, and it was Schwarber last year in left who wasn't covering enough ground. So he was free to roam all over the field. I just like his instincts, and I think when you have instincts out in the outfield, there's nothing like that. Ruben never got us any guys out in center field that would go and get the ball.
I wasn't very good.
Now, what would you guys think? either you keep it's a young player, so either you keep him as a starter, or either you send him back to the minors and keep him playing, because you can't have the luxury of having a player like that and have him in the bench.
Right, and he's going to dictate that. Johan Rojas, with his bat, will dictate whether he makes the opening day roster as a starting center fielder or does go down to AAA for more seasoning. One of the big priorities for Rojas in camp is bunting. He's been bunting a ton every day, and it's still not perfect. There was a bunt single he had the other day that was kind of right back to the mound. He had 6 sacrifices last season, and it was almost like some of them were fluky. Most of them were back to the mound. You wanted to angle it better, first base line, third base line, and it's just a matter of getting the repetition. If he can put that tool in his toolbox, that makes him a lot more valuable to the Phillies as a guy who can advance a runner with 1 out and a man on first base. Because Johan Rojas, he doesn't need to hit 300. He doesn't even need to hit 280. He just needs to hold his own at the plate.
Totally agree with that. The other thing I'll say about Ricky, when that Ricky touched on, was his outfield plays. He's not only an instinctive outfielder, but he also does things really well fundamentally. We talked about it on the broadcast today. I am so impressed by the way he actually works his body. He always works behind the ball. He knows where to throw the baseball. He keeps his throws down consistently. He doesn't get too crazy with his throws. The fundamental piece, and that's that combination, for him to be able to have that kind of instinct and that kind of fundamental play, that's really, really rare in a very young player, and it's something that the Philly fans should be looking forward to.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we have another question. Let's go with Ashley.
Yeah, guys, I'm with, and he has a question for Ricky.
Ricky, do you think that Spencer Turnbull will crack the opening day roster as a long reliever, or do you think maybe it'll be a combination of Connor Brogdon, Junior Marte, and Dylan Covey?
I like the way he's been throwing the ball. It wouldn't surprise me as a long guy out of the bullpen with the ability to go in and make some starts. I mean, you hear about Dave Dombrowski talking about you need, 10 starters a year, he always says. He's going to be one of those guys. I think he makes a team out of the bullpen, in the bullpen.
The Phillies used 100 players combined the last 2 seasons, so there's a lot of guys who are going to be able to help them. I actually talked to JT Realmuto yesterday about Spencer Turnbull, asked him what stuck out so far, and he said if you look at the way that his stuff moved the one time that he's appeared in camp, 4 strikeouts, several of those pitches weren't even close to the strike zone, kind of speaks to the movement. The key with Turnbull is just keeping him in the zone enough.
One of the other things that are really important for Rob Thompson and his ability to sort of maneuver his pitching staff is to make sure that he has guys who can go multiple innings. Right now in the minor leagues, no one's developing guys who can go multiple innings. And in fact, they're not developing guys who can go back to back. So anytime you have a durable arm or somebody who can have multiple innings, that is really important for a guy like Rob Thompson, who wants to be able to maneuver his bullpen as he wishes.
And, talking about pitching, Walker also bringing Walker to the equation. He was a disappointment last season. He didn't even see any action in the playoffs, and that was something that the fans get angry at. Some of them, and now we have to also see how he does. If he has a spot in the rotation.
Yeah, Taijuan Walker was a little bit behind schedule here in camp, made his first start of the spring today, and the velocity was a little bit down, but he said that's what he expected after an unusual build-up to camp. But, I would say that it was up and down. It wasn't totally disappointing. He threw 172 innings, which has a lot of value in this day and age where, what were there, 15 guys league-wide who did that last season? So, led the team in wins. He just wants to be more consistent this season. When things didn't go well for Taijuan Walker last year, a lot of it was pinned on the velocity. It was 90-91 as opposed to 94-95. So that's a big key for him this season.
Yeah, it's really about, and I agree. I mean, it wasn't the perfect season for him, but he did get some wins. I think that his overall consistency, he had the pretty big splits between home and away, and he also had some splits between the righties and lefties. I think it's about being more consistent, just a more consistent pitcher, and if he can do that and throw more strikes, a lot of walks last year, and that's something that he's got to have to stay away from.
You throw that many splits, you're going to throw a lot of bad pitches. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're a split-fingered starting pitcher. I mean, most guys will pitch off the fastball. He kind of pitches off of his split more.
33% splits.
33%. That's an awful lot. And usually that pitch, I mean, I don't know how you guys look at it. How many times do you actually fall in for a strike when a pitcher's throwing it? I mean, if I was ever to use that pitch when I played, which I didn't throw it, I would throw it on a 2-strike basis, and that's it, because I didn't want it to be a strike. I want the deception of it looking like a strike falling out of the zone. He uses it for strike pitches, and when you do that and you lose command of that, I mean, you
does
can
make it a little
blow
tougher.
up innings quickly, and that's what he had a ton of. Like, he'd go 2 really good innings, and then all of a sudden the third inning, it's like you can't stop the merry-go-round.
Yeah, those walks are what kill him. And we have another question. Let's go with Ashley again. Ashley.
Hey guys, I'm with Patty, and he has a question for Ruben.
Who do you think the surprise Philly is going to be this year?
Surprise Philly. Wow, that's a really good question. I don't think he's going to be a surprise, but I really think this is going to be like a monster breakout year for Bryson Stott. I'm a huge fan. I think Bryson's going to be a Gold Glove second baseman. He was already, in my mind, a Gold Glove second baseman. I think he missed it by 4 votes or something like that. But I know one of his goals is to want to hit 300. I love that thought process because nobody talks about how important batting average is, and it really is actually pretty important. And he sort of has that thought process. I think he's growing as a player. I think he's maturing. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a surprise, but I think he's going to be one of the best players on that club and on both sides of the ball.
Is there anything you want to add?
I think Trey Turner. I think Trey Turner is going to be. I say a surprise. I can't really call him a surprise because
He's going to shock the world.
I believe he's going to go back to where he was when he was playing for the Dodgers. I think his defense is going to come back around a little bit, but I think that's also going to play into this. You have to get off to a good start. I think the team's thinking like that, and I think if Trey Turner gets off to a good start, it will build as the season goes on. So I look for him to come out in the end of March and April on a tear.
And I would just say Christopher Sanchez, he turned a lot of heads in the second half last
Great
year. He had, one of the lowest ERAs in baseball after the All-Star break. If you look at the opponent's batting average, it was the best changeup in all of baseball last season. In his first start of the spring, his fastball velocity was up 3 miles per hour, and he worked in a cutter. If he can do both of those things while maintaining the command that he had last season, he can be much better than a number 5 starter. He could be a mid-rotation piece or even more. Really promising signs early from Sanchez.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say that, and a caveat, that JT Realmuto didn't really have the year that you would typically see from JT. I think he was pretty disappointed in that. I feel he's going to be one of those guys who's going to bounce back with a really excellent year this year, especially offensively.
And I don't know about saying a surprise, but I really want to see Castellanos way better than what it did before last year, right at the end of the season.
Well, he started very hot, but he had this, a slow
He
finish.
really struggled with the
Definitely.
finish.
So I would like to see that, just Castellanos come hot. And talking about being a player that will actually, I spoke with Bryson Stott yesterday, and he said we're going to be more selective as of what to hit and what not to, and that's something that I think they really need to.
Castellanos is on the top of that list.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
he's the biggest free swinger I think I've ever seen in this sport. I mean, he's one of those guys that anything that looks like a strike and goes out of the zone, he's going to swing at. I don't know if he could change his stripes.
Yeah,
I think there are certain guys on this team that can.
Yes.
For instance, Trey Turner swinging at the pitch above his shoulders or above his chest. I think he could change that. Casty, I don't know.
Well,
I think he's the old goat, and I don't know if you could change it.
It's that low and away slider that Castellanos struggles to lay off. But, Ruben mentioned JT Realmuto. In comparison, Realmuto, a lot of the pitches that he would chase on last year were just off the plate inside or just off the plate away. You look at his numbers in those 2 zones, he didn't have a lot of success. So it's just a matter of being able to lay off that pitch. And he's already gone to work this winter and spring trying to do so. He swung it well early in camp as well, Realmuto.
Yeah, and they're working on it. That's the main part. They're working on that. They know that. So we have another question with Ashley. Ashley.
Yep, we have a question for Corey coming from Paul. He wants to know, who would you rather have on the bench, Dahl or Cave?
That's an interesting question. A lot of those questions come down to the roster flexibility, guys being out of options or not being out of options. David Dahl's in camp on a minor league deal. Jake Cave was with the Phillies for most of last season. So far they both produced, I would say, relatively speaking, in camp. Dahl, I would think, offers a little more upside. Former All-Star guy who hit 300 several times with the Rockies. And you look at his performance the last 2 years at AAA, he hit in the Dodgers organization, he hit in the Brewers organization, but he just wasn't able to find his way up to the majors. But that final spot on the bench, or those final 2 spots on the bench, it's really one of the only, some of the only drama you're seeing in this camp. There are 25 other teams probably that are envious of the Phillies for how many spots they have solidified at this point.
Yeah, that's a very important. Also, I think that do you want to add anything to that, guys?
I just think I have a feeling that the fact that Jake Cave has a little bit more versatility defensively may give him an edge. Actually, I think the real question is whether it's going to be Pache or Cave. I frankly would rather have Pache for me, just because I think his defense, in case things do not work out with Johan Rojas and he cannot make the adjustments that are necessary, they're going to need somebody who can play defense, particularly in center field, who I think is a little, a shade better than Brandon Marsh out there. Obviously, Brandon, we got to get him on the field, and he's getting really close to being on the field. But I think Pache is, you don't sleep on his defense, because he's a very good defensive player, and he's starting to understand his swing a little bit better. That's why I feel, at least at this stage, and I know it's a lefty-righty thing, but it's going to be a tough decision for Dave Dombrowski and the rest of those, and Rob Thompson, as to how they're going to end up getting that 26 man on the field.
But when you really look at it, how many times are you going to put in a left-handed hitter? You literally need it to be in the number 8 or 9 slot, and that is it. You're not going to pinch hit. You're not going to take Casty out. You're not going to take Turner out. You're not going to take Real Muto out. I don't know. I don't know if Jake Cave stays. I think Ruben's right. I think it's more if Pache stays or not. And I think he's doing a nice job in spring training right now. He can get to a ball in the outfield. He's showing some pop here and there. So, Jake Cave's one-dimensional to me. And also, and I don't like to say that about anybody, but I feel like he's just a left-handed stick off the bench.
And also remember, when we're talking about who's going to fill these final spots on the roster, it's also possible that it might be somebody who's not even in the organization right now. Yeah. Christian Pache was acquired the day before opening day last year. He wasn't on anybody's radar as a Phillies bench piece. So a lot of different options, a lot of balls in the air, and there's half a camp still to go here.
Yeah, definitely. Remember, guys, you're watching Spring Training Q&A, sponsored by Toyota, and let's go with Ashley for another question.
Yeah, guys, our next question is for Ricky. He says, can the team survive with the closer by committee, and who can step up and take that job?
Here's my who could step up. I think any of them could. I mean, Hoffman was throwing the ball extremely well last year. Alvarado, I think he could close at any given point. Sir Anthony, okay, he's had his ups and downs. He might be that one guy in this bullpen rotation that has those opposite years. Has a bad year, good year, bad year, good year. And Orion Kerkering. I mean, who knows? I think this is one of those few. I have never, ever believed in going into a regular season without a closer, but that's how teams are now. You name a closer for every team, I would hand you $100 right now.
Yeah, there's probably like 10 real closers.
Yeah, eight or nine.
They just don't do it anymore. And when I used to leave spring training, I kind of wanted to know what I was doing leaving spring training. Because if you're a hitter, didn't you want to know if you were going to play, if you were going to be a bench player, if you were, you just want to know. You want some kind of an idea of what you need to be prepared for.
Yeah, I mean, it is an odd situation, but I do feel, and you mentioned the one name that I think is probably the one guy that's probably the most important guy in their bullpen is Sir Anthony Dominguez. If he bounces back and gains his confidence, because he's got as good a stuff as anybody in baseball as far as his repertoire is concerned. If he gains his confidence, is able to throw more consistent strikes, and just believes in his stuff, I think this bullpen's got a chance to be really, really good. You just never know when it's going to click for a guy. And hopefully he has really strong early outings, and he can sort of let that sort of snowball. That's sort of what happened with Alvarado when he came back from being in the minor leagues. He started to throw the ball with a lot more confidence. Now you see the Jose Alvarado, who is probably one of the, if not the best left-handers in baseball, because he's so confident with his stuff now. I hope that same thing happens to Sir Anthony.
It would also make a big difference if the Phillies get the best version of Gregory Soto, who came over last year and he's throwing 99, 100 miles per hour. He really only had a handful of blow-up outings, but those blow-up outings skewed his numbers for the entire season. So it's just a matter of him, being able to avoid the snowball effect. And he's a guy who made an all-star team in Detroit. He has great stuff, can get lefties and righties out. And with Jose Alvarado being such an important piece that the Phillies want to deploy at the biggest spot in the game, that increases the importance of Soto as like the second most important lefty. But in saying that, Matt Strahm, also a very underrated, versatile piece, started for the Phillies, relieved for the Phillies last year, is one of those few multi-inning guys, and give the Phillies like 5 or 6 outs. So, he's another piece not to sleep on, Matt Strahm.
And talking about closing games, who will you choose, Jose Alvarado or Sir Anthony?
Alvarado would be my choice. I think when he's healthy, a 12-pitch inning, that's what you look for guys in the bullpen. There were streaks last year and the year before where he went on month streaks where he was unhittable. I'll take that over anything else.
Yeah, and Ashley has another question.
Guys, I'm with Tony, and he just has something he wanted to say to y'all.
Hey, guys, long-time viewer, first-time caller. You guys are doing a great job. It's great to see Ruben and Ricky.
Tony
I've never met the great Corey Simon, but you guys are doing a great job. If anybody hasn't been down to Clearwater for spring training, you got to come down. It's a great experience. You guys do a terrific job. Love you. Keep it going, guys.
That's a Hall of Famer just
There
said
you
that.
go.
Yeah, Tony Bruno, the man.
There you go, the fan of the year. There you go.
He's absolutely right. Come on, every time you come down to Clearwater, you get that feeling about you. Well, most of the time because we're coming down for baseball, But like Ruben said, you walk off of that plane and you're in a place you want to be. So,
And I want to talk about that a little bit, Ricky. People that come here, they show that support, they show that loyalty, and it is different. Baseball here, you actually chill. It's just really enjoyable. You go back to the Citizens Ballpark, and that's a whole different game.
Yeah.
We get very creative, we get very intense, and that's actually great because you know what? We're celebrating 20 years of history at the Citizens Ballpark.
That's right. Can you believe it's 20 years?
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. I remember opening the ballpark. I remember them sending me from Clearwater, to go back before we opened the season and sort of check things out before we actually opened the season. And I can remember it like it was yesterday, and now it's 20 years later. We're celebrating that ballpark.
Still looks brand new.
It still is one of the most beautiful parks in baseball.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And that's something I want to actually ask you. What is the best memories that you guys can share with us from the Citizens Ballpark?
You want to go first, Rick?
There's a lot of them, man.
I'm gonna go. I could have brought up myself, but I won't.
Just go ahead.
I'll go with Brad Lidge finishing out the 2008 World Series.
Woo!
Hard to top that.
I mean,
I guess
how
everybody
could you not
pumped.
him going down on his knees, hands up, Chooch coming in, Lidge blows out his knee. How could you not forget?
Yeah, that was not great. That part of it wasn't great, but it was pretty fun.
How about you, Ruben?
When we made the trade for Roy Halladay, one of the things that was really important for him was to play in the playoffs. He had never pitched a game in the playoffs when he was with Toronto. And for him to take the baseball in the very first game after a very long career and pitch for the first time in a playoff game against Cincinnati Reds and throw a no-hitter was one of the most extraordinary moments I've ever seen.
And in my eyes,
and made me cry, and it still does, makes me emotional.
In my eyes,
it was just amazing.
I was doing pre-post that year. I saw the perfect game, and that game against the Reds, he threw the ball better that game than he did in that perfect game.
It was just amazing.
And how about there being game-ending plays that were not simple? You think about the Juan Castro play on the third base in the Marlins game and Carlos Ruiz's play right in front of the plate.
Juan Castro made it look easy.
Yeah, he sure did. I would say, I just think back to that Jimmy Rollins walk-off double off Jonathan Broxton in the 2004 NLCS, a legendary call from Scott Fransky, really one of the most iconic walk-off playoff calls I can remember. But that was just a huge moment. I mean, if they lose that game, it's 2-2 in that series. Maybe the entire series turns out differently. But Jimmy just had a flair for the dramatic all throughout that era, a knack for clutch hitting, and that was probably his biggest single
gonna win the game.
plate appearance. Yeah, it was.
That's what I
Still remember those memes the next day.
I was in the studio for that one.
Oh, nice. I want to say mine probably will be when Bryce Harper gave us that hope, Game 5, and that was the hope that we all needed in this city, and that just felt amazing. And that I think is one of mine. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, I don't
might
think
be the
Bryce
biggest
is
home
done,
run
though.
I think it's the biggest home run I think I've ever seen.
I don't think Bryce is done. I think there's.
Oh
a bigger
no,
one
he's
in there.
not.
No,
He's
but that
got
opened
more
I
in
know.
him.
I'm just saying.
He's got more in him.
He did open the door for the Phillies, and I think he's got another big one in him that's going
Another
to be
few of them.
more memorable.
Definitely, and that actually I think gives us the hope that because it was a while before the Phillies went back to the World Series, and that I guess that was what opened the door, like you were saying.
Well, I mean, you also look at some of the playoff resumes that these guys have put together. Like Bryce Harper has been so much better in the postseason as a Philly than I think anybody would have ever expected. Every time he comes up in a big spot, he's been able to come through. Zach Wheeler with the lowest WHIP in playoff history. Ranger Suarez with one of the lowest ERAs in playoff
Don't forget
history.
the Schwarberian.
Yeah, hitting bombs 2 years in a row.
All right, and guys, we have a very important guest. Let's go with the president of the Tri-State Toyota dealership, Ashley.
Yeah, guys, I'm here with Paul Muller, and we're just going to talk a little bit about Toyota's relationship with the Phillies. So can you tell us a little bit about that relationship, Paul?
Sure. We've been sponsors of the Phillies for about 30 years, and we do things with them literally all year long, especially during the baseball season. We do all our veterans things with the Phillies, fans feeding fans. They get involved with us with our philanthropic efforts all throughout the year. They are an absolutely magnificent organization, and what I think makes it work so well for us, Ashland, is their values and their core values are pretty much the same as ours. I mean, we both do pretty well, so you want to try to take care of people, it's the community, it's the people that take care of you. We want to make sure we take care of them.
Awesome. I love it. What's in store for the upcoming season?
Pretty much a lot of the same stuff. We do all the veteran stuff, all the food things that we do with the Phillies, sponsoring a lot of their events. One of the things that's kind of cool is this year we're the sponsors of Cole Hamels' retirement, which is kind of cool. He's coming back to retire as a Philly. We also sponsor the Wall of Fame, the Phillies Wall of Fame, which we do every year, and we have coaches clinics for PAL and for athletes with disabilities. And again, it's just we want to give back, and the Phillies are just so wonderful about helping us do that. It's just an honor to be a part of their organization.
I love it, Paul. So what do you enjoy most about being a baseball fan and a Phillies fan?
Oh, listening to Ruben and Ricky. It's the camaraderie. It really is. I mean, we're laughing out here, but all these people are out here listening to them talk about baseball. And, people use the term baseball geek. And, I mean, you guys, when I listen to you talk about the ball's low and away and they can't do this. I'm fascinated because I'm not smart enough to figure any of that out. And I realize
Neither was Ruben.
That was cool. I realize it's what you do for a living, but you really do it so well. But I really think it's just, they said today this was the 4th largest crowd that they've had at that's unbelievable. A spring training, I mean, it's a gorgeous day, but like 4 deep and standing room only. I wish I could get this at some of my dealerships.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. We're so happy that you're here, and thank you for joining our live Q&A.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Paul. And now let's go with the season predictions. Go ahead, Ricky.
I'm gonna go off on a limb, and I'm gonna say Phillies. They're gonna win the NL East. I think they win it. I'm gonna say that they win 100 games on the nose, and they win the East.
Wow, really?
I'm feeling it this year. I'm sick of the Braves. I've hated them for, as you know, Ruben. I had to go through those years playing against them with Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz. The hell with the Braves. Go Phils.
Any Brave fan there around there?
Not too many.
Ruben, predictions.
So I do think that they're going to have to knock off Atlanta, and I think they can. I do believe I think that they're going to finish the division in a tie, and we're going to win the tiebreaker. I think they're going to be 95-95, both those teams, and we're going to win the tiebreaker because we'll have won the head-to-head competition against them. So I got the Phillies winning the NL East as well. So not 100 games.
Yes, I'm telling you.
Wow.
Think about this.
That's
Every time Rob Thompson gets them going after the first 2 months of the season, they play 600 baseball.
So the question is,
start it from day one.
Yeah, the question is, can they do that from March 28th? Because that is 2 years in a row. That right around June 1st, they played like the equivalent of a 95 to 100 win team.
That's right.
It's hard to follow the boldness of the divisional tie or the Phillies winning the NL East.
Divisional tie.
But I do just think that this is the same way that 2011 was the best regular season version of that team that won 102 games. I think this is going to be the best regular season version of this team, and I do think it's going to be an upper 90s win total based on the incumbents they bring back. And just as I said earlier, you look at the rest of the National League, other than the Dodgers, other than the Braves, how many other rosters scare you? There really aren't many. There are 2 teams in this division, in the Marlins and Nationals, that could lose 90-plus games as well. So
There are rosters that you don't even know any names. The Oakland A's.
There are some of those.
Try the Oakland A's. Try
maybe
naming
later.
5 guys on their roster.
All right. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for watching. This was spring. Awesome. Look at all the fans. There you go. All pumped out. Thank you for watching, guys.